All right. Good morning, everybody. We are going to be talking about unleashing your potential with the new form editor and the new and improved Authentisign in Lone Wolf Transactions zipForm edition. I don't normally do these trainings with my video on, so bear with me here. I'm usually able to hide behind it, but today we got cameras on. We're going to be bold. Okay. Talking about unleashing your potential with Lone Wolf Transactions. Now, I know Rick already did his intro. We're not doing a webinar, so we don't have to really worry about these audio settings with the Q&A. We're just gonna do this. I think you guys are recording. Fantastic. On the agenda today, we're gonna talk about creating and applying templates and how that affects our transaction management inside of zipForm. We'll go over the new form editor. We'll talk about digital signatures. We'll talk about sharing tools, and then hopefully at the end we'll have some time for Q&A. Before we get too far into this, I do want to mention some of the other training resources that are available to you in California. CAR holds 5 online webinars every month. We do basics, advanced, paperless, digital signatures, and open office hours, 1 hour with the Zip guys. You bring your questions, we bring the answers. There's a QR code here. You can scan that. That'll bring you right to our webinar calendar. Below the calendar itself is also a video player with all of our recorded webinars. So if you are looking for a specific webinar and you don't have time to wait till the next session, you can watch our pre-recorded content there on that site. Lone Wolf does do their own training. They have a YouTube channel. They also have their own webinars. Just remember that the training that is offered by Lone Wolf is specific to the software, but it is not specific to California. If you want California specific training, you're going to want to jump on one of our webinars, sign up for it. Even if you don't attend one of our webinars, you're going to get a link to the recording the following day. This looks good for me. I get a registrant, you get a recording, everybody wins, right? There is also support that is available to you as a CAR member. We have the CAR Customer Contact Center in California. They are waiting by the phone, 8:30 to 4:45, Monday through Friday. They can help you with membership issues, whether you're looking to purchase a class or a publication. If you need zipForm help, you need to get to the legal hotline, they can help you with that. If it's a zipForm problem that they can't help you with in a few minutes, they're going to send it up to me. They're going to send it up to my associate Leslie or my manager Ed, and we're going to make sure that your problem gets taken care of. Lone Wolf does offer after hours support, but I do want to point out that there is a difference between support and training. Support is when something is broken. Training is when you don't know how to do something, right? If you call this after hours support, they are not going to do one-on-one training for digital signature or, how do I start a transaction? How do I do things like that? This support is specifically for something is broken. If it is something that you need to learn how to do, definitely check out one of our recorded webinars. I also have created a library of YouTube videos called Zip Tips with the Zip guys. Here's a QR code here. This goes right to our YouTube playlist. There's 51 videos in there. They're all very specific to certain things that you would do inside a zipForm. They're all 1 to 3 minutes long. And these are a very solid resource and a good foundation for when you need to know how to do something or how something works inside a zipForm. I also want to talk about the CAR Mediation Center before we get too far into this. The CAR Mediation Center is the default provider within the CAR RPA. They have over 70 specially trained mediators with expertise in resolving real estate disputes. The CAR Mediation Center provides consumers, whether they're buyers, sellers, landlords, or tenants, with a supportive and confidential process that, while working with the mediator of their choosing, will assist them to reach a mutually agreeable settlement and avoid the time, expense, and uncertainty of a litigation. Realtors or their clients can contact the CAR Mediation Center anytime with any questions that they may have. So let's jump into Zip. Let's talk about templates real quickly. If you're not familiar, templates are a folder of documents and information that we're prepping ahead of time to make the process of starting a new transaction that much quicker. The real world example that I like to give is if you had a file folder on your desk and the only thing in there was a listing agreement and the only thing on it was your name and your broker affiliation. If someone said, be at my house in 10 minutes to list my house, you could grab that folder and run out the door. We're prepping a folder with documents and information ahead of time to make the process that much smoother. So we're doing that inside of zipForm, but on steroids, right? We're setting up our transaction on the front end so that when we're starting a new listing or starting a new purchase, we're already 1, 2, 3 steps ahead. So you'll notice that on my listing template here, let me zoom in a little bit. I have this set up to be an auto template. And what that means is that when I start a listing transaction and the category is residential, this template will automatically apply. The same goes for my purchase template. When I start a purchase transaction and I set the category to residential, this purchase template will automatically apply. When I start a new transaction template, I choose the type of transaction, I name it, give it a category. These are the only things that are asterisk. These are required. But down here, we have our auto apply options. And you'll notice that the default is do not automatically apply. I did choose listing, but I haven't chosen a category yet. That's why we still have an asterisk here. So if this was multi-unit, that's what's going to show up here. Vacant land, that's what's going to show up here. You get the idea. These are the automation triggers. I'm telling the system, when I do this, you do that. If you've already created a template and you want to turn it into an auto template, you can click on the little drop down here, click on template details, and you can choose your auto apply options from here. We have listing, or if we have purchase of residential, and this is going to apply. Inside my listing template, I have some organization. I've added some folders. You can add a folder by clicking add folder. I've added some folders. I have listing documents, a folder for offers, folder for my closing documents, and a folder for my listing photos. Inside my listing documents, I have a cover sheet. I have a few placeholders, and I have a residential listing agreement. Placeholders, in my opinion, are very, very useful when we're managing our transactions inside of zipForm. A placeholder is an empty, null spot, just a visual reminder of something that we want to add at a later date. So for example, I have a list of providers and a list of repairs. I want to be the most knowledgeable person about the property that I'm listing. So I ask the sellers to give me a list of the providers, their utilities, their gardener, if they have a favorite plumber. I mean, there's everything about the property. Who services this property? The reason I do this is because I'm going to get sign calls, open house guests, other agents. I'm going to write up my MLS description. This is all gonna color a very beautiful picture of this property. And when I do get questions, I will have that information at my fingertips. The same goes for the list of repairs. I'm not asking for a TDS SPQ level list of repairs. I just want to generally know, oh, that addition back there that was done a couple years ago, or the previous owner did that. Again, talking points for when I get questions on this property. Okay. To create a placeholder, we go up to add document up here, click add document, and we have create a placeholder. We name it, we tell the system if it's required or not, and we click OK. That is how we add a placeholder. We'll look at how to fill placeholders once we get into a real transaction, but placeholders are really helpful for me. I think that I'm a visual person. I get distracted easily, but I can see very clearly that there are documents or items missing in my transaction because I have these placeholders here. In my listing agreement itself, I have some boilerplate information. And when we open up a form, this is when we first see the choice that is going to be taken away from us in just a mere 39 days. If you're familiar with the classic editor, this has been the staple for, I don't even know how many years now. The classic editor is going away. We have the new form editor available to us. For the last year plus, we've had a choice between the classic and the new form editor. If you have a zipForm account that was created in the last 18 months, you probably only have the new form editor available to you. That will be the case for everybody across the board starting on April 8th. The classic editor will be going away. We'll talk about some differences between the two when we open up an actual transaction, but for now, we're still talking about our templates, right? So I have a listing agreement in here. And the reason why I'm setting up my listing agreement with the minimum amount of information is because there is some boilerplate info that I'm going to put on most, if not all, of my listing agreements. For example, I have the seller box checked here. I'm definitely going to be representing at least one seller, so I might as well check this box now and not have to do it every single time I start a transaction. Same goes for my information. I'm in here as the listing agent. There's my broker affiliation. I don't have any client names. I don't have a buyer or seller. I don't have a buyer's agent in here in my listing transaction. I don't have an address. But on the listing agreement itself, I have things like my MLS affiliation, and I have, all personal property and items will be excluded, things that I'm going to put on the contract every time. I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time I start a new listing transaction now. This is the type of these are the type of features that I'm just trying to demonstrate for you. I'm not telling you how to fill out the listing agreement. That being said, my purchase template looks very similar. I have an RPA. I have a placeholder for the proof of funds and for the pre-approval. I've added myself as the buyer's agent in my purchase transaction template. Um, this is the foundation for the transaction management system. We just want to get our efficiency as high as we can. So we're writing the minimum amount of information to have the maximum effectiveness. Okay. So let's apply a template to an actual transaction and go through that workflow using the new form editor and the new and improved Authentisign. Okay. We're going to start a new transaction. Today is going to be a new purchase. Before I name it, I'm going to use MLS Connect to bring in information about this property. If you're not familiar, MLS Connect is a service that pulls information from the MLS about the property that you're writing an offer on to inform the transaction with the address, city, state, zip, the listing price, the other agent's information, things like the APN number will be pulled in. This is a really helpful service, and it does definitely cut down on transcription errors. Now, I'm logged into Claw. I know most of you use CRMLS. It's just what I'm logged into right now. I'm going to drop the listing ID in here. You can actually see that this is a CRMLS listing. When I click find, I'm going to get address, city, state, zip. This was listed for $1,499,000. Looks like it was listed November 24th of last year. And again, it's also going to bring in the other agent's information. I'm going to use the address of the property for the name of the transaction. And then when I go down here and I click residential, I see that my awesome purchase template automatically applied. I didn't have to choose my template. It automatically was applied because I told the system to do so. Okay, so when I click save, three things are going to happen. A new transaction is going to be created. Number one, my template is going to bring in documents and a little bit of information that I put in. And number three, MLS Connect is going to inform the transaction with property details. Now, there are a lot of good property details: address, city, state, zip, the county, the school district, the zoning, the year built, the APN number. We have a new member benefit in California starting the beginning of the year called Record Connect. So we all know and are recognized MLS Connect. This pulls from the MLS. We have Record Connect now that pulls from public record. So the reason why this is a nice tool to use, even if you're not writing up a listing, even if you're using it for a purchase, this is going to bring in the name of the seller. So we can see here that we have the Robert D. Such and Robert D. Such Trust. Okay. So I'm going to look for the first, middle, last orientation of the name. I'm guessing that that's that. When we don't need to add seller to because it's the same name. This brought in all the same information, but it also brought in the legal description, which we see is blank down here. We have a couple options when we're using Record Connect. It's going to ask us, do you want to replace all the existing data with the imported data? If you say no, it's only going to import data into the spots where there is no data. Okay. For me, when you're adding a listing to the MLS, it's generally pulling from public record. So I tend to just choose yes, replace all the information. And that may feel that we're doing redundant work, like we don't need to use both. But remember, Record Connect didn't bring in the name of the listing agent. MLS Connect did. So both of those products in concert with each other, I now have a listing agent brought in from MLS Connect. I have myself brought in from my template. And I also have the name of the seller brought in from Record Connect. Now that I have a seller, a listing agent, and a buyer's agent, I need to add a buyer. Over here on the left-hand side here, I have buyer 1 through 4. When I hover through, I see this little icon here for the address book. If you've never used the address book before, you can click on the party, fill in their information, and we have this button here that says save to address book. Okay. This is helpful when we have repeat business, when we're writing a lot of offers for one particular buyer. You probably want to add them to the address book to make it that much quicker to add their contact, their party information to the transaction. For me, I'm going to use the address book and add my good friend Ricardo. All of his information is going to be in here. I'm going to click save. I don't need to save him to the address book again because he's already in there. So now I have a buyer, a seller, a listing agent, and a buyer's agent. My parties are pretty well filled in. Okay. Now, if I wanted to start filling in property details, I have 3 different options that I can use to fill in those details. I can go to the summary tab of the transaction and start filling in my purchase summary. I can go directly to my documents and open up the cover sheet, or I can open up any form, and in the new form editor, I have access to offer info, listing info, and my party information for that matter. So there are a lot of different ways to input information and inform your transaction with details that weren't brought in from MLS Connect or from Record Connect or my template that way. I'm going to open up my RPA. And I'm, again, presented with, do I want to open up in the classic editor or the new form editor? So I want to start with opening up in the classic editor, and we're going to talk about some of the tools that are in the classic and then where to find them in the new form editor. So in the classic editor, we have options like printing and sending. We have options like save as a PDF. We have e-sign. We have MLS Connect and Record Connect. We have the clause manager, right? These are all tools that exist in the new form editor. There are certain things like sticky notes, like the ability to add photos. Adding photos and using sticky notes are not in the new form editor. For some of you, that may be just a earth-shattering news to hear, right? I loved using photos on my forms. I also sometimes liked using sticky notes. They were helpful. These are 2 things that did not carry over into the new form editor. So for those of you that use those, I'm so sorry. They're not coming back. It's gone, okay? The rest of this, we still do have the ability to highlight in the new form editor. We have a preview button would be like the print preview. The full screen, we do have view options in the new form editor, and we'll talk about that. So if you notice, all of this is kind of just a big top level menu. All of the buttons are laid out just horizontally. We also have access to jump between forms in the classic editor. So now that we've looked at that, let's open this form up in the new form editor, and we'll point out where some of those features are. As I open up the RPA and I open it up in the new form editor, we'll notice right away that the document itself is a bit shifted to the left. It's taking up the left-hand most part of the screen. Now all of our tools and resources are over here on the right-hand side. We have our view options. So like we had full screen in the classic editor, now we have this fit to width on the new form editor. And you'll notice that there is a bit of redundancy. We have this print and download button here. We also have a print and download button here. We have this prepare signing button up here, but we also have a signing button here. Now, the reason why there is some redundancy here is that if we were to close this form panel, those buttons go away, but the top ones are still there. If we opened up our parties widget, those buttons are gone, but they're still up here, okay? We have several different options and tools to work through in the new form editor. We have our party information. We have access to our forms, listing info, as I talked about, and offer info. So listing info and offer info, this would be like what's on your cover sheet or what's on the summary tab of the transaction. This is where we're informing the transaction. MLS Connect and Record Connect, those are where we can import. Now, it is a bit confusing that these are not labeled MLS Connect or Record Connect. They're just very specific. We want to import listing information. We want to import tax record information. I know it's confusing, but this is the way that it's set up. You have to remember that this new form editor is not specific to zipForm. Lone Wolf owns several transaction platforms, Transaction Desk, Instanet, zipForm, and they are making this new form editor the default across the board. So features like MLS Connect, that's a zipForm label. They don't use that terminology in other transaction platforms. So for them, they're kind of streamlining and just making everything look the same, work the same, so that there's parity between the two. It probably makes it a lot easier for their customer service to help people in the different transaction platforms. For us, it's a bit confusing because we have grown accustomed to importing listing is MLS Connect. It doesn't, we have to learn some new terminology here. So again, we have options to add property information, add our offer info. And for this was listed for 199, 900. So we're just going to come in at 1,499, 900. We don't have a closing date, obviously. Our deposit is, let's say, what would that be? We'll go 30, 45,000. We're just going to, let's go 45,000. And as I'm filling these things in, you'll notice that on the offer itself, this information is flowing in there. My 149, my 1,499, 900, my 45,000 is here. As I put in my offer date, that will populate my date prepared. Offer is going to expire tomorrow. We don't have a possession date. Oh, it looks good. One thing we don't have on here is the loan amount. And for some of you, obviously we're probably going to get that from the lender, things like that. We have a form called the RPA financing worksheet. Now, in the new form editor, I've found that it doesn't carry over to the RPA. I'm hoping that that changes sometime soon, but you can see like we put in 45,000, 44,997 is literally 3%. We were pretty close to it. For the loan amount, our client's going to do 25% down. So let's say that this is 124,925. I'm just going to copy that. And I don't think that number is going to carry over into the actual form, which it didn't. So for our loan amount, what was it? Oh, I don't want commas in there. Remember that you can't put commas in your purchase prices here. No dollar signs, no commas. And there's our 75%. Fine. Before we move on, I want to talk about some of the smart form features that are in the forms themselves. These forms will make sure that you don't have redundancy. They'll make sure that you have the correct addenda included with your offer package. So for example, we have this all cash button here. This pertains to paragraph 5B of the contract, which is deals with all cash. Paragraph 5B says very clearly that an all cash offer specifies that no loan is needed. And this is also not contingent on the buyer obtaining a loan. With that, we know that on our offer itself, there shouldn't be any loan information if this is an all cash offer. So when we click all cash, the loan amounts go away. The system is going to make sure that you don't have redundancy in your offers, okay, or contradicting information, I should say. Also, when you see a reference to a form with a checkbox, the default financing is conventional in the RPA. But if you were to be writing an FHA offer, a VA offer, seller financing, there are addenda that have to go with that. So if this was seller financing, we'll notice that the SFA automatically attached to or added itself to the transaction. Because we're in the workspace here, we have the workspace and we have this grab from transaction. These are the two sections of our new form editor. Grab from transaction would be like your file cabinet. Grab from transaction is all of the documents that are in this transaction, right? As of right now, all of our documents are in our workspace. But if we had no documents in here, everything is in our little file cabinet here. What do you do with the file cabinet and what do you do on your desk? You take things out of the cabinet, put them on your desk. We take multiple documents out, we put them on our desk, and they're just in a stack. So as we flip through the pages, it's just one long flip of pages, or in this digital case, it's one long scroll. So if we have the seller financing addendum, we have the purchase agreement, and we have the finance worksheet. I can switch between the first page of each one of these documents, but you'll notice that the RPA finance worksheet, for example, it says page 1 of 1 up here. As I scroll up, we'll get immediately to the RPA. This is the 27th page of the RPA. It's one long scroll. For the finance addendum, this is 4 pages. As I get down to the last page of this finance addendum, the offer starts. This is one long scroll with multiple documents in it. This is faster and more efficient than when we're using the classic editor when we're switching between documents. Okay. If we need to reorder these documents, we have these little 6 dots over here. Where are we going? We can grab that, change the order, change them however we need. We can reorder the documents the same way that if they were sitting on our desk, we can stack them in whatever order that we want, right? Now, we don't have a Q&A box on here, but it looks like we have chat. So I will pivot to, let's look at this chat. Will the classic templates, so, okay, this is a question that I get quite often. Will my templates transfer over to the new form editor? Your templates are a reference to the forms. They have nothing to do with the editor. The editor is where we edit our forms. So if I have a template, as I showed you, I have a purchase template. My template had nothing to do with the classic editor, with the new form editor. The templates are a reference to forms and some of the information that is living in the forms. The only thing that is changing is where we edit our forms, not where we pull our forms from, not where we, manage our transactions, because this is just the form editor. This is one piece. So you can think of this as like getting a new TV for your house. Your cable box is still going to work with the new TV. It's just a new TV. We're just changing out one component of the transaction management system. The templates don't have any bearing on that. Good question. Any other questions as we go? I know this is like a fire hose of information. I'll wait. All right. So we talked about this workspace and our grab from transaction. Up here we have, as I pointed out, we have this add button. This is where we can add documents to our transaction. We can add from one of the form libraries. And again, similar to the way that our all forms menu looked in the classic editor, we have the order of the different libraries here. We can search all libraries at the same time. We can search specifically for a document by its acronym or by its name. We can search for categories. So we have back office forms, we have disclosures, we have listing forms, purchase forms. These are categories that were created by Lone Wolf, by the designers. We've given them direction on what we want the categories to be. But in general, we can filter the results in the library by their category if that is helpful to us. We can also sort them A to Z, Z to A, or by the form number themselves. If we want to upload a document into our transaction and therefore into our editor, we can browse files from our computer. We can add a document from the cloud. We have options here. Now, these files can be pretty big. We can upload up to 20 files at once. The maximum upload is 20 megabytes. PDFs, documents, Excel spreadsheets, image files, those all work. The one thing I want to point out, though, is that image files, Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, they're not editable inside of zipForm. You can't even really open them, to be honest, inside of zipForm. But this is a transaction management system that allows us to store documents and files. So even if we're not editing them or opening them in the editor, we can still house them in our transaction. PDFs as well, obviously, are not editable, but we can open PDFs in the new editor. That is possible. Okay. Our party info, this is helpful in certain cases, because there are parts of the form, like the electronic delivery address, where we don't necessarily want to back out of the form editor, go into the parties, copy our client's email address, and go back into the form. We're jumping back and forth. If I were to, let's just go to that part of the document. Where's this electronic delivery? The last page, I believe. I never remember what it is. Yeah, this is this one. So if I wanted to specify my client's email address, if I need to grab maybe their name, if there's information that I need to pull from here, I can go to the Parties tab. I can open Ricardo's record here. Maybe he is signing on behalf of a trust, and I need to pull the full name of the trust. I can pull that directly from the Parties tab here, right? Rather than jumping back and forth from the parties in the transaction, go back to my editor. There's a lot of, we're cutting down, we're just making things more efficient inside of this new form editor. All right. Let's talk about the signature process, because there is kind of a lot. It doesn't seem like Authentisign is that much different than Digital Ink, but it really is in a lot of ways. Okay. So when I'm in the new form editor and I have multiple documents in my workspace, these prepare signing and this signing button here, they work a little bit differently. They're a little bit independent from each other. If I hit prepare signing here at the top right, everything in my workspace is going to be moved into a signature packet. It's going to be, we're going to start preparing a signature packet with everything in my workspace. I have currently Digital Ink chosen as my default. That's why I'm presented with all three options. If you had Authentisign set as your default, you would only have Authentisign. It would just go right into the Authentisign workflow. If I had DocuSign set as my default, I would be presented with the option to use Digital Ink or DocuSign, but I wouldn't have the Authentisign on there. So obviously for training purposes, I want to be able to show you all three of them. Digital Ink is going away the same day as the new form editor. Now, this is where things get a little bit confusing. So Digital Ink is, again, like MLS Connect, is called import listing now. Digital Ink is the brand, the label, the logo that we recognize from yesteryear of ZipLogix, of Lone Wolf, right? Digital Ink is technically Authentisign Classic, or as I think internally they call it, Authentisign 1.0. The new and improved Authentisign is technically Authentisign 2.0. It's just the updated version of it. It works off of the same framework that the new form editor does. It looks very similar. Digital Ink is going away because it is fraught with problems. There's over the past year, Digital Ink has had nothing but weird issues of emails not getting there, packets not completing, strange things. It's not across the board. It's not a problem like a red alert type of problem, but too many people have been having issues at weird times with weird situations. Authentisign, I have not seen nearly the number of issues that Digital Ink has. Back in the day, years ago, before we had this new option, Digital Ink was inferior to DocuSign. It worked. I'm not saying that, but DocuSign was just better. And that's why DocuSign is a paid for service in California. Digital Ink was included because ZipLogix owned it. Now that Lone Wolf owns zipForm, Authentisign is a Lone Wolf product. So once again, it's an in-house signing solution that is included in your member dues. If you were in another state, Authentisign would be a paid service, just like DocuSign. But your membership dues in California cover your Authentisign subscription. DocuSign, again, is still a paid service. It's about 20 bucks a month, maybe $240 a year. If you use DocuSign and you like DocuSign, keep using DocuSign. It's a great tool. Authentisign and DocuSign have parity at this point. They do the exact same thing. They look very, very similar. They're both reliable. The user interface is on par with each other. Authentisign is a great signing tool. We're used to Digital Ink, and I get that. So if I started preparing this signature packet using Digital Ink, I'm going to get this oh so familiar Step 1, step 2, step 3, workflow. Step 1 is where we are actually choosing the forms themselves. This is what I'm talking about. Step 1, step 2, step 3. We're choosing the forms. We name our packet. Like I said, we have options to use DocuSign or Digital Link, not the new Authentisign. We can choose a return folder. We have our documents down here. We can reorder them with these little crosshairs. We know this workflow. This is the same for DocuSign as it is for Digital Link. The workflow is very similar. When we are using the new Authentisign, things look a little bit different. Now, if I open up that previous workspace that had 3 documents in it, so you saw when I clicked prepare signing, everything went to the signature packet. If I'm using this little pen tool down here to start the signing and I don't have anything checked, it's going to tell me, please select one or more documents. So this is where we see a little bit of difference inside the editor itself. I don't really need to send this finance worksheet. This isn't really part of the contract of the purchase agreement. So if I choose the RPA and the seller financing addendum, and I hit this pen icon, now it's going to start that packet. And we're going to be using the new Authentisign for this. Now I'm sending 2 documents. I'm sending the RPA and I'm also sending the seller finance addendum. The signing name is important. I know that a lot of agents don't see it as something important. It's just, oh, it's the name of the signing. Who cares? The signer's going to get it. I'm going to let them know that's everything is well in the world, right? The signing name does 3 things. It's not only the name of the signing, but it's also going to be in the subject line of the email that the signer receives. So just like any business subject line, we want it to be short, clear, concise. It's also going to be the name of the folder where the documents return in your zipForm account, unless you specify a return folder, which is an option. I see so many agents that have eSign Packet 1, eSign Packet 2 as folders in their transaction. They have no idea what's in that folder. You should be able to look at the folder and know what's in it. And your signer should see that email and know what they're about to sign. Okay? So for this, I'm going to change the name to purchase agreement and seller finance addendum. I'm going to hit create. And now we're going to get into the Authentisign workspace. Again, it's built off of the same architecture as this new form editor, so it's going to look very, very similar. We're going to lose some of the tools that we were used to up here. The print and the download are up here. We still have that fit to width option for us, our view options up here. Now with Digital Ink and DocuSign, we saw that there was that step 1, choose the form. Step 2, choose the party. Step 3, tag the document. This is more of a choose your own adventure. Okay, we have access to the forms here. If we need to add forms, we can go to the Documents tab. We can reorder those forms. We can add more forms from our transaction, from our computer, from the cloud. We have options here. We can choose the documents. We can choose our signers. So we see that we need to add participants. Now there are 4 options here. Add yourself, add new, add from transaction, and add from contacts. We all appreciate the fact that the forms will tag automatically when we add parties, right? I know that we may feel inclined to choose add yourself. This is not going to tag the document automatically. When we add new, that's not going to tag automatically, and neither is adding it from your contacts. We added our contacts to the transaction at the very beginning. MLS Connect brought in the listing agent. My template brought in my information. Record Connect brought in the seller. And I pulled in from my address book the buyer. I informed the transaction who is the party for what part of the transaction, right? So when I add from transaction, this is going to tag the document automatically. So I'm going to be adding myself. I'm going to be adding my client, and you'll notice that I have some options here. What type of signer is this person? I have remote signer, I have a reviewer, and I have a CC. A remote signer is someone that is going to be signing remotely. They're going to get an email and they're going to sign. A reviewer is someone that needs to approve the documents. They're not putting a mark on the document, but they are in the system marking it as approved. They're approving of it. Someone that is a CC is simply getting a copy of the final documents when everything's done. The same way that if a remote signer were to just not sign, that signature packet would not be completed. If the reviewer doesn't approve the documents, that signature packet will not be completed. The CC, they don't have any bearing on the completion of the packet. They just wait until the packet is done. They're going to get a copy of it. For our purposes, both myself and my client are going to be remote signers. When I click select, you'll now get that oh so familiar color-coded tag, right? So blue is for my client. Yellow is for me. Let's reorder these. Let's get the RPA up at the top. Okay. So again, blue is for my client. Yellow is for me. The dates are in there. We can see that we're both remote signers. This is all good. If I want to add a signing order, if I want to choose who signs first, and then when they're done, the next person will sign, I can do that from here. If I set the signing order, we can see that it's in its current state. I'm number one. My client's number two. I can grab this, drag it up, make Ricardo number one. Now I'm number two. I can make both of us number one. And you'll notice that right here, there's a little link here now. This means that we're both number one. Break that up, it's still number two, or I can just turn off the signing order completely, right? In its current state here, both of us will get an email simultaneously. We can sign at the same time, no issues, okay? Now, if I had a document that needs to be tagged, maybe I'm on the listing side, I receive an offer, and I need to manually tag that document. Let's talk about the process of how to do that. Excuse me. Let's find a document with some space on it. All right. Go right there. There's a big open space here. So if I need to add tags, I need to add signatures, I need to add initials, I need to add dates. There's a big open space so we can do that. A lot of you are going to be inclined to think to look on the signers tab. Oh, I need to add tags. It must be on the signers tab. It's not. It's under tools over here. Tools. And again, they're color coded. Ricardo's blue. I'm yellow. So if I need to add a signature here, it's going to auto add. It's going to auto add the date. Maybe I want to add the initials here. Maybe I want the time that the client is signing as well. I have a text line, and you might notice that this is blue, which means that Ricardo will be able to add this text. I can add the full name of the client here. I can add their email address directly right here. And if I want to add the same tags for me, I need to select me and pull those same things out from here, right? Add the time, add an initial. I can add a text line, add that email address and the full name. And so again, this text line is yellow, which means I'll be able to edit it. We also have markup here. So you might notice that there's a text line that's yellow, but there's also this markup that is not color-coded. Markup text is like if you had a contract, paper contract, and you wrote on the contract prior to anybody signing. Don't write on the contract afterwards. That's fraud, right? But we can mark up the document prior to people signing. So if we grab a markup text and we put this down here, we could say, this is markup text. We can stretch it out, make it one line. We can say we want this to be real big. I want it to be blue. I want it to be bold and italic. This is markup text. Get the idea? Any questions on that? You guys are so quiet. Okay. We add our tags. We add markup text. Everything's looking good, right? So I'm gonna send this to my client now. I have some options here. By default, this packet will expire in 30 days. I also know that my client, he's an engineer. He checks his email at 9 a.m. every day. Very busy guy. He might check his email at the end of the day, but I know that he checks his email at 9 a.m. every day. So it's 10:45. He's not going to check his email for probably, 24 hours. I'm going to send a reminder every day at 9 a.m. So the client's going to get a fresh invitation to sign this every single day at 9 a.m. until they sign. If I want to send custom invites, I can choose that Ricardo will get a different subject line and body. I will get a different subject line and body. I have that option here. There are certain circumstances that you might want a specific message to go to a specific signer. We can do that. For my purposes, I'm just going to send the generic invitation. Okay. So my client is going to receive that email inviting them to sign. The email is going to look pretty similar to the way that the digital ink would look, right? It's going to say your signature is requested. And like I said, purchase agreement and seller financing addendum, that's in the subject line of the email. So the signing name is in the subject line. It's also in the body of the email. They're going to start signing. Very similar process to all of the other signing platforms. They're going to acknowledge and accept the terms of service, and they can start signing. Obviously, they've read all of this, right? So this is the same process that you would go through with Digital Ink, with DocuSign. They're going to clickety, 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 click. When they get to the arbitration and the liquidated damages, they're going to be presented with an accept or a decline. This is something that you need to coach your client. Let them know you will have the option to accept or decline 2 paragraphs in the RPA. If they have questions about what those paragraphs mean, direct them to legal counsel. But let them know that there will be 2 optional initials for them to include. You can see here that the blue is optional. The red is required. Okay. This all looks good. They'll sign that, initial that. And now we have, let's go fit to width here. All right. So now we have our signature. We see that the date, see the time, see the date, they initialed it. And now this is Ricardo text. Looking good. Checkbox. Sign that, initial that, sign that. And they're done. They had 33 places that they had to sign, initial, or complete. They complete the signing. And at this point, they can print or they can download the document in its current state. It's only half signed at this point, but they can download what they just signed if they want to. I am going to open my email, and I have an email inviting me to sign. So I will start my portion of the signing process. And we're going to look at some of the differences that we have with the signatures after this one is done. All right, so we have that signature, we have the initial, and we have the text line. This is Jack text. And you notice that my markup text is here. No one had access to it. No one was able to edit it. It is literally marking up the document, okay? And I can complete the signing. So at this point, both people have signed. I'm going to receive an email with the final document attached. So is the signer. It's also going to go into my transaction in a folder named after the signing name. Okay. So let's talk about some of the places where we're going to use some alternate signing tools inside of Authentisign. So for example, my client needs to, or I need to fill out the AVID for my client. When we open this up, we see that there are spots for buyer and seller initials on that first page. I'm sorry, buyer initials, not seller. Buyer initials on here. There is a signature line for the broker that is performing the inspection. Because this is not cut and dry listing agent, buyer's agent, it could be either or. This is not going to tag automatically. You're going to fill this in manually, right? Ricardo's information, this is very specific. This is a one-to-one relationship with that signature tag. It's a buyer. The seller initials here. The firm representing the seller is going to be, looks like Strand Hill. CAR is the buyer's agent firm. So when I go to send this for signature using AuthentiSign, we're going to name this Avid. You'll notice that when I add from the transaction the parties to sign, my client's signatures and initials are going to be placed automatically. I'm going to add myself. I'm going to add Ricardo. It's going to ask me, is Ricardo the buyer? I'm going to say, yep. It's going to add the initial. It's going to add the initial. It's going to add the signature. But you notice I'm in here and it did not tag me automatically. So I'm going to have to manually tag this. But I have an extra option here. I don't want to wait for the email for me to sign. I want to sign right now. I have that option here. So I'm going to remove myself from the signing, which does feel counterintuitive, right? But that's because Ricardo is a remote signer. I'm not going to be remote when I sign. I'm going to sign right now, in person, on the spot, right? So when I go to tools, I have Ricardo's tools here. I don't need to add anything for him. But I have this myself option. And you notice, just like that markup text, these are not color coded because I am literally marking the document right now. So I'm going to grab a signature. I'm going to accept the terms of service. I have my little signature here. Let's make it real big. Grab my date, move it over here. And we're going to add another signature there. Move that date over here. And guess what? I just signed the document. Didn't have to wait. So now when I click next and I send this, only one person's getting an invitation, my client. I've already signed it. Beautiful, 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 right? Let's wait for that email to come in with this new signing invitation. Let's see, there it is. Signing the Avid. So when my client starts signing, just like he did for the RPA, he'll initial, and then we see here, oh, look at that. I already signed it. Ugh, fantastic. Client's got 2 initials and 1 signature. He can print it and download it from there. It's going to go back into my transaction, signed. Beautiful. Now, the last thing I'm going to leave you with is a question that I got quite often is we had the extension of lease form has a cover page, and it says very specifically to remove that first page before serving it to your client. So for example, we have this extension of lease form. If you're working with, as a landlord, with a tenant, with a landlord, it says remove this instruction page prior to sending this extension of lease. I have Gabby is the tenant, Ricardo is the landlord, okay? When I send this for signature, I only want to send that first page, okay? This is how we separate the pages. I need to add participants here. I'm adding Gabby. I'm adding Ricardo. They're both remote signers. Their information is going to be auto tagged, which is great. When I go into the documents, I go into this extension of lease. Oh, look, we have both pages here. I'm going to click on these little dots and I'm going to say delete. Now, when I click save, I'm going to be presented with this, oh, it's not doing it anymore. Perfect. It's going to remove that page. Now it's only one page. Okay. I'm going to show you that one more time for the people in the back. Okay. We have the extension of lease. It's a 2-page form that says very specifically to remove that first page. In order to do that, we're going to open up that extension of lease. We're going to prepare for signing. This time I won't add the clients because it doesn't necessarily need it. Bill Ruth, haven't heard from you in a long time. We worked together at KWPV back in the day. All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to go into the document here. I'm going to delete the page and click save. It removes that page. Beautiful. How do you get rid of the information that is in that dropdown? There's two different ways to do it. If you're still using the classic editor, you're going to use what's called the lookup field manager. In the new form editor, we have a little bit easier way to do that. And I think let's find a form that's going to have a bunch of data in it. We'll use, I don't want the lease. We're going to use this PV listing. I think it was on the Avid. We had a bunch of. Okay. So for example, I had several different listing agents in this third page here. So when I clicked into here, we had all these agents that don't matter to this transaction. I have little X's. I can check this. Oh, that's not good. There's a scroll bar. Oh, there we go. We can click the little X and get rid of them. You got to wait for it to load. It's a one by one type of thing, right? That's a little frustrating to do. It works, but it's one by one. If we are outside of the document, okay, not in the document itself. So like I showed you, one by one, you can remove them. If we're outside of the document and we're on the summary tab, actually, let's go even one step further back. On the transactions tab, we have transaction tools and we have the lookup field manager. Okay, lookup field manager. This is going to pull up every one of the fields that stores information. I've done a pretty good job removing things in here. So let's look for, and they're all real confusing in here. All right, so I have two email addresses in here. Maybe I only want none of them. I can clear them. And then if I want to lock that field, it will never save information in there again. So this is how you can go in and take a look at what has been saved in those different fields, clear it out, lock it, do whatever you need to do. I've done a pretty good job clearing this out, so mine looks pretty clean, but there definitely are certain fields in here that probably have information that I don't want anymore. But yeah, just you gotta kind of hunt around. These acronyms don't make a lot of sense, but this is like seller to street. Uh agent, I don't even know what that would be. Yeah. Strange stuff. Okay. What else? Will DocuSign signatures remain the same? Yep. DocuSign has nothing to do with the form editor, and has nothing to do with AuthentiSign. DocuSign will still work. It's still integrated. No changes there. Okay. Any last questions before we adjourn? You guys have been fantastic. Let's see. I'll stick around for another minute or so. So we went over applying templates, creating templates, the new form editor, digital signatures. We didn't get to talk about sharing tools, which is fine. We have a whole webinar on that. But if there are no lingering questions, I have been Jackson Beaudelaire. I'm a senior transaction coordinator. I'm sorry, senior transaction supervisor at CAR. Let's get out there and make some money, guys. Bye.